Hey there, members of the Night Crew, and folks who just love horror. Welcome to the Night Crew podcast, where shadows breathe and monsters listen. This is the podcast where we get cozy with the creepy, the frightening, and the just plain undead. I'm your host, Brad Ricks. And just a quick reminder, if you're a fan of the Night Crew podcast and would like to order a t-shirt, they are available on my website. Hop over and order yourself one. Quick a little bit about my agenda coming up. I have Scares That Care AuthorCon coming up starting this coming Friday. So hope to see you there if you happen to be in the Williamsburg area. Stop by, pick up a few books. Also, first weekend in March, I'll be at Big Texas Terror in San Antonio. It's going to be a great event that I'm super excited for. I'm hoping to be able to keep up with these podcasts throughout the next couple events that I have. If I happen to miss a week, my apologies. Now, last week, I talked about the Beast of Gévaudan and the Beast of Bray Road. And I also talked about the Loup-Garou, which sets up for today's episode. Now, with our vampire deep dive, we had an episode take us on a trip to New Orleans. Well, I hope you enjoyed the sights and the food, because we're going back to Louisiana. There are places where the dark feels unfinished. Not empty, not quiet, but watching. And Louisiana is one of those places. It's where Spanish moss hangs like something that was left behind, where the air is thick enough to taste, and where the water doesn't ripple so much as breathe. And if you grew up in Cajun country, you didn't grow up with bedtime stories about fairy godmothers and glass slippers. You grew up with warnings. Don't wander too far after sunset. Don't answer something that's calling your name from the trees. And whatever you do, don't meet the eyes of the Rougarou. And a little rhyme to it. Tonight, we are continuing our deep dive into werewolf lore, but stepping out of European forests and into American swamp. Because the Rougarou isn't just another werewolf variant. It's what happens when old world fear lands in new world isolation and then changes a little bit. If you've been listening to our werewolf arc, you already know about the French Loup-Garou, a cursed man, a shapeshifter, a creature born from sin, violence, or dark pacts with the devil. Now, when French settlers arrived in Louisiana in the 1700s, they brought that story with them. But Louisiana wasn't France. There were no stone villages, no castle ruins. There were swamps, bayous, miles of wetlands that could swallow a person whole without leaving bones behind. So the Loup-Garou adapted. The name slurred over generations. Loup-Garou became Rougarou. And the creature became something heavier, more patient. Now, descriptions of it vary. It's a wolf-headed man or a hulking dog walking upright, glowing red eyes at the tree line, sometimes almost human. Almost. And that's important because unlike the European werewolf, which howls at the moon and tears through villagers, the Rougarou prefers proximity. It watches, it waits, and it lets the swamp soften you up first. Now, here's where it separates itself from traditional werewolves. You don't become a Rougarou because you were bitten. You become one because you broke rules. Specifically, Catholic rules. In many Cajun tellings, if you fail to observe Lent properly for 7 consecutive years, if you skip confession, if you ignore mass, If you live in open sin, you're at risk of being cursed for 101 days. Now, by day, you're you, but by night, you're something with claws and teeth and a hunger that doesn't feel like your own. And the only way to break the curse, you have to draw blood from someone else. But you cannot tell them what you are. Because if you confess, if you reveal the truth, you're passing on the curse. So that detail alone tells you what this legend was really designed to do. This wasn't just about a monster in the woods. It was more about obedience. Stay in line, keep your promises. Because if you don't just sin, you transform. Now let's talk about the environment though, because the Rougarou doesn't chase you like a Hollywood werewolf. It stalks. Now, picture this. You're walking along a narrow strip of raised earth between black water. The moon makes the swamp look solid until you step wrong. Something splashes behind you. You turn, but nothing's there. You walk faster. You hear breathing, wet and close. You realize something has been pacing you for a while now. Not rushing, just watching. That's the Rougarou's territory. It doesn't need speed. The swamp slows you down. Mud grips your boots. Roots twist your ankle. Water swallows your flashlight beam. By the time it reveals itself, you're already trapped. All right. Now, let's ask this question. So you're in the swamp. You see red eyes between the trees. What do you do? How do you kill a Rougarou? Well, here's kind of the uncomfortable truth. There's not a universal answer. Now, the first part of this is, let's say you don't kill it, you just outlast it. Because in many traditions, the Rougarou isn't a separate beast. It's someone under a curse. And that curse lasts 101 days. If you survive without it drawing your blood, the curse ends. But if it scratches you, if it bites you, well, now the clock resets. Now you're the one counting nights. So sometimes the goal isn't killing it, it was just endurance, which might actually be worse because that means it can come back again and again until you slip. Now, also, because of its werewolf ancestry, some stories do say that silver works. Bullets, knives, a rosary pressed into flesh. But the Rougarou predates Hollywood rules. Silver might wound it, or it might just make it angry. And in a swamp, you don't want something angry and wounded tracking you through water. Now, a third thing, and this is uniquely Louisiana. Some say prayer repels it. The sign of the cross forces it back. That repentance breaks the curse entirely. Which, makes sense. It was born from broken vows. But imagine your defense being faith while something circles you in the dark. That's not very comforting. It feels more like desperation. Now, this next thing, so I kind of like this one. I think it's kind of funny, but there's an old European carryover that made its way into Cajun lore. The counting compulsion. If you remember, we kind of talked about this in the vampire myths too. But with this, you scatter 13 small objects, beans, seeds, pebbles, at your feet. The Rougarou will be compelled to count them before continuing. But imagine trying that in real time. Your hand shaking, you drop dried beans into the mud, and behind you, instead of breathing, you hear whispering, counting. 1, 2, 3. That might buy you seconds, but in the swamp, not really safety. Now, there's also a thing where some hunters claim that they've driven it into deep marsh. They lured it into unstable ground. Watched something large sink beneath the surface. But here's the problem. In folklore, if you don't see the body, you don't assume it's dead. Now, if you ask around Louisiana long enough, you'll hear stories told quietly. In my interview with Blaine, that's one things he talked about is those are stories he grew up with. Hunters followed for miles, massive footprints appearing near porches and stopping abruptly. Children describing a dog man watching from the tree line. And here's the pattern. It doesn't always attack. It threatens. It observes. It lets you know it could. Now, that psychological element ties it back to what we've been discussing this whole time about werewolves. The fear isn't just violence, it's transformation. It's the idea that the monster could be someone you know, someone in church with you, someone at your dinner table. And you wouldn't know until the sun went down. But why does the Rougarou endure? So, European werewolves were about losing control. The Rougarou is about consequences. It evolved in isolation. It absorbed religion, and it became a moral enforcer in a place where the wilderness already felt alive. And that's really what makes it powerful. It wasn't just a beast in the woods. It was a warning to children, to sinners, to communities. And even now, when you see it on festive posters or sports mascots, talk to someone who grew up in, deep in Cajun country. They'll tell you, don't joke about it at night because the swamp has a tendency to listen. So, if traditional werewolves howl at the moon, the Rougarou breathes in the dark. It doesn't need silver bullets to survive. It just needs belief. And somewhere in Louisiana, where the trees grow thick and the water runs black, something might still be standing at the tree line, watching, waiting for someone to break a promise. Well, that's it for the Night Crew podcast and our little trip to the swamp for the Rougarou. Get a good time? Make sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, and leave a rating. Hopefully 5 stars. If you want updates on my writing, you can follow me on Facebook or TikTok at Brad Ricks Author. You can find copies of my novels wherever you like to buy books. But if you hop over to my website, bradricks.com, you can purchase signed copies of any of my novels and get yourself a Night Crew podcast t-shirt. I'm Brad Ricks, reminding you to stay out of graveyards after dark, question people who don't show up in mirrors, and try to stay good. 101 days is a long time. Until next time, keep your curtains drawn, your sense of humor sharp, and your blood inside your body. Thanks for listening.